Welcome everybody for another session of the Networking Fridays. It has been a very interesting journey the last almost a year since we started this webinar series in May 24th last year. And we had almost 50 sessions, and this will be the very first session that I was invited to moderate. I'm very happy to moderate this session because our relationship with the Hydrographic Institute started 2 or 3 years ago. We signed a very interesting MOU. We've been working on several projects together. But the most important reason I'm very happy with moderating this session is that the Portuguese Institute was established in 1960 as a Portuguese Navy unity, and it's presently a state laboratory employing about 300 permanent staff. So it's a fantastic, institution that as an architect, I have my training on architecture, visiting, the most beautiful building of the Instituto Hidrográfico is also fantastic. The library is something that I really recommend you all to go and to someday visit and see by yourselves a beautiful architecture and beautiful blue tiles, all over the walls, and it's very interesting. But I'm not talking about old stuff. The Portuguese Hydrographic Institute is one of the leading science and technology institutions in Portugal. They've been working on ocean observation, basically everywhere. They've been managing, important data and information and cartography from several countries, not only Portugal. But I'm spending too much time over here talking about the Portuguese Hydrographic Institute. I will introduce the speakers today. First, we have Captain Miguel Bessa Pacheco. He's a Portuguese Navy officer specialized in hydrographic engineering. He holds a Master of Engineering degree in Surveying Engineering and a Master degree in Geographic Information Systems. He served most of his career at Instituto Hidrográfico with the Oceanography Division and the Technical Scientific Data Center. He participated in several oceanographic cruises, and for 2 years was the commanding officer of the Almirante Gago Coutinho research vessel. Presently, he is the technical director of the Portuguese Hydrographic Institute. And after his presentation, we'll have João Vitorino, who is a physical oceanographer with more than 20 years of experience. João develops activities centering the study of the physical oceanography of the Portuguese coastal ocean areas, and in the implementation and improving of monitoring capacities and simulation modeling capacities for those areas. He participated in several scientific and technology multidisciplinary cruises, participate in several projects, and it will take forever now to list all the projects that João Vitorino is involved or is responsible for. So they will have their time to explain what they've been doing. So with no further ado, I just want to remember you that you please write your questions on the Q&A box, not on the chat box. It will help me to relay these questions and ask the questions at the moderation part of this session. And now, please, we start with Captain Miguel Bessa Pacheco. The floor is yours.
José Luis, thank you very much for presenting us, and thank you very much for the S Center for inviting the Instituto Hidrográfico to this series of the Networking Fridays. It's a wonderful, very interesting, very useful initiative, and I'm a frequent flyer, as I've told you previously on it. I normally use YouTube airplane to go through it, but it's and it created already a dynamic in our research environment that it's unbelievable new and with a lot of profits already. So for this specific Friday, what me and João are proposing to talk to you all is about the wide variety of activities and programs that the Instituto Hidrográfico has been leading and has been participating in order to better know the Atlantic, to provide more knowledge, get data, interpret it, get products out of it, and you know, at the end, to make it the use of the ocean as sustainable as possible. That's, you know, today's goal for humanity. So I'm going to start sharing my screen. The way this is going to go, I'll go brief now, just, you know, to explain a little bit what is the Institute, how we work, what we do in general. And then I'll pass the floor to João to talk about the activities in oceanography, and then João will hand over to me for wrapping it up. So I'm going to start sharing my screen. Let me go over this. Share. So I believe now it's okay. By the way, if something comes up at some point that you wish to contact us, or for some reason, you know, you have both my email and João email in this cover page. So just use it, and we'll try to get back either us or whoever is more linked to the subject that might be your questions about. So about the Instituto Hidrográfico, so we are a Portuguese organization settled in Europe, Portugal, and with Lisbon being where we have our main headquarters. So we do have two facilities where I'm actually now the headquarters, and we have an hydrographic base which is located more or less 10-15 kilometers south from Lisbon. Regarding what is our legal status, we are both a Navy organization, a Navy unit, so military sailors, and at the same time we are a national marine research lab. And so this means that we do have obligations regarding these two areas of activity. To go to the field, this is the part that I mostly like, I must confess, is going to the field and putting the hands on nature, the environment. We do have 4 ships, 2 ocean going and 1 coastal, and 2 coastals. And then these are Navy ships that are available for the Institute to use. And we also have a number of smaller boats and rubber boats and vessels for, you know, doing some works more close or even in inland waters. Regarding our scope of activities, we can put our activities in 4 different buckets. First of all, we are the National Hydrographic Service. So we have national and international responsibilities regarding hydrography and the safety of navigation. So we do produce nautical charts. Especially because we are within the Navy, we do provide environmental support to naval and maritime operations. So both Navy and especially the National Maritime Authority are our clients on this area. Then we do have responsibilities and research and development related to marine sciences. And taking all these expertise, we also are entitled to provide commercial services in areas where we do have expertise. Now, where do we have these expertise? So this is where I have all these exams. So starting with oceanography, hydrography, marine geology, chemistry and pollution, safety of navigation, and data management, that it's mainly taken care of by a data center. So if we look at the major marine sciences, one thing we don't touch is biology, but in all other areas we do have expertise, and the fact that we have them all together in the same institute, it's really gives us ability to be multidisciplinary when dealing with certain factors, with certain environmental issues. Regarding the way we work, our strategy, we have our work organized in 5 major themes. That would be mapping, observing, predicting, data management, and observation technologies. This last one is a pretty young one on our scope of the strategy. And within these teams, we do have major programs. So this is long-term programs, 10 years, 15 years, some of them 20 years, that will every year in every action, we go and put a little bit more of piece of knowledge on it in order to get the full puzzle complete. I'll be mostly talking about some of the mapping, while João will be talking mostly on the observing and some on the predicting. So starting with oceanography, that's João's field. So I'm going to hand over the floor now to João, and I'm going to stop sharing my screen. So I think it's available now, and you can go ahead, João.
Yeah. Okay.
The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon to everybody. Let me also thank the Air Center and José Moutinho in particular for this invitation to be here and to talk a little bit about our activities, focusing the activities in the area of physical oceanography. So I think you can see now my screen.
Yes, we do.
Yeah, okay. So I will start by focus at the beginning these activities that we are developing that are core monitoring activities or core activities for characterization of the marine environment and for the monitoring of the evolution of the conditions that affect this environment. We develop these activities, of course, in the Portuguese national waters, although in the other scenarios. I represent here the main areas, the Portuguese national areas that are involved. Of course, these activities will comprise the bathymetric surveying, so the characterization of the bottom topography, and also the characterization of the bottom sedimentary cover. Both these aspects developed by our hydrographic division and by our marine geology and marine chemistry divisions will be addressed by Miguel. I will focus on the aspects of the monitoring of the oceanographic conditions that affect the ocean surface and the water column from the surface to the bottom. In the 6 decades of activity that the Instituto Hidrográfico now has, we have implemented and operate a number of capacities for this long-term observation, so this monitoring of the surface and water column. These capacities that you see here in these global views are integrated in what we have called the real-time monitoring infrastructure for the Portuguese exclusive economic zone that we call the MONIS-AES infrastructure. And you can see here that we have several number of observing systems that are installed both in the Portuguese mainland where we have focused and we have put a lot of effort in the implementation of these systems, but also in the Azores archipelago and the Madeira archipelago. So some of these systems that integrate the MONIS-AES infrastructure are developed since the beginning of the activities of the Institute. That's the case of the tide gauge, the coastal tide gauge networks. We have presently around 20 stations in operation that are located in the main ports of the continent and of the Azores and Madeira. And this data is delivered in real time and then is disseminated to the broad range of users. And this monitoring activities is articulated with several of our partners, like the port administrations. Also started after 10 years of activity of the Institute, the implementation of our network for wave buoys. These are now, we are operating 4 wave rider directional wave buoys, 3 in the continent, so at more or less the mid-shelf offshore main ports of Leixões, Sines, and Faro. And also 1 buoy installed in the Madeira archipelago. And this wave buoys capacity is also increased by our close collaboration with regional entities in Madeira and the Azores that allow that the buoys that are operated by these entities can also add to the global MONISE data on the wave, not only wave, on wave characteristics, but also some of the buoys, namely the buoys that we operate, also have installed surface temperature sensors, so providing a long time series of surface temperature. More recently, by the year 2005, we started the implementation of the network of multiparametric buoys. These are big systems. You see here one example of one of the operations of these systems. We have presently 5 permanent systems in operation, distributed along our continental margin. In the coastal ocean area along the Portuguese mainland. These systems were installed sometimes with the funding from international projects or Interreg programs or EA grants programs, and sometimes with the IH own funding. These buoys are transmitting in real-time data, hourly data, so which hour we receive, and these are big systems that accommodate several sensors, namely sensors for measuring meteorological parameters, sensors for measuring surface conditions like waves or near surface temperature, phytoplankton with fluorometry sensors, turbidity, dissolved oxygen, and then we have water column sensors like acoustical Doppler current profilers that measure the current in the upper levels. Also in one of the buoys, deep current DCP, so acoustic Doppler current profiler with a long range, and also with temperature at several depths of shore zone. Very recently, we started the installation of hydrophones on these buoys. This is work that is being conducted in the framework of 2 projects, Subeco and Jonas. And these buoys also offer the possibility for the installation of sensors and other systems of opportunity. I put here 2 examples of very interesting collaborations. One for the installation of low-cost contaminant passive samples that was developed with NIVA in Norway and Vesitox in the Czech Republic, and also experiments for the development of macroalgae that we have conducted with the Seedweed Energy Solutions company and University of Porto. But also we had examples of the installation of larval traps and colonization experiments. And I use this opportunity to refer that we have now one transnational access call that is open under the Jericho S3 project, and we offer exactly the opportunity for interested users to come to install sensors or other sensors in our multiparametric buoys. So if you are interested, you can access the webpage of Jericho, and we can see what is the opportunity that is often open. Of course, these multiparametric buoys introduced also another level of complexity in the activity of the Institute to maintain these big systems. Namely, these systems require maintenance operations that we conduct each 6 months. So using a large hydrographic vessel with a team that developed know-how about these big platforms. We must cope with problems associated with biofouling, for example. You see here 2 examples of how some of the systems appear after 6 months of operation at sea. And this also requires a regular calibration of the sensor. So we use our calibration facilities, the calibration lab at IH2, in each maintenance to calibrate the sensors that enter in the buoys. It also requires the capacity to operate during emergencies. So in case of a drift of a buoy, accidents, and this requires, and in our case, we profit from not only the fact that we have already a technical team that have developed a very solid experience and is very strongly articulated with the crews of the hydrographic vessels in which we conduct the operations. You can see here in the difficult conditions to recover one buoy that drifted away during a particular winter. But also this profits from our flexibility inside the Navy to articulate with different ships, so to use what conditions are available to rapidly go and also articulate with the maritime authorities, with the different representation in each port, and also with other Navy units that can provide support in cases of emergency. Also, by the year 2009, we started the implementation of different capacity. These are the coastal stations of HF frequency radars. We are now operating 6 antennas that are covering these areas that you see in the image. So outside the Lisbon port, in the Algarve, in the southern Portuguese coast, so in the Algarve coast, and more recently in the northern Portuguese areas. So in the southern coast and in the northern areas, these coverages are then articulated with coverage from the colleagues from Spain, from the Spanish entities. And these systems provide us a large coverage of the surface currents, so to about 65-70 kilometers offshore, and also allow us to address or to measure waves more near each antennas. And in one case, there are developments for one of these stations to be used in tsunami detection. These are very important products in terms of the measurements and derived products. Regarding the surface currents, a wide range of users can access this data and can use this data, but also products specific for surface drift that are very important in case of accidents at sea. These monitoring capacities are also complemented by the development and operation of a number of numerical modeling capacities used for example, in the operational forecasting activity that IH develops at what we call the Meteorology and Oceanographic Center, the CMETOC Center. In the CMETOC, a number of models are run daily, namely wave models for providing wave forecasts from the global ocean to the regional areas and to local areas, and also to provide the currents and tracers evolution using in the 3-dimensional water domain that is conducted using the ICOM model that was a result from a collaboration with the Hydrographic and Oceanographic Service of the French Navy, the CHOM. So these are the operational forecasting capacities that are run daily at the Institute, but models are also used in IMCAST simulations to conduct, for example, or support, for example, process studies of the main processes in the Portuguese areas. For example, here one example that is conducted using wave models with high resolution for a long-term period. This is a study that is conducted in the framework of MAR Risk project. also the use of models, not only in CAST, but also in semi-operational framework to provide us increased understanding of processes. For example, here in an area of the Portuguese coast that is marked by the presence of a long and narrow submarine canyon. And so these models in this particular case is a simulation model, so is using observations that we conducted in this area, namely CTD profiles, current meteor observations, to improve the capacities to simulate the process in this area and to go deeper in the understanding of these processes. All these capacities, so the monitoring capacity is complemented with the numerical, the monitoring component with the numerical capacities, are being used in different levels and to integrate in different initiatives at national level and in terms of international programs. Well, at national level, we have the MONISA is contributing to the Portuguese implementation of the Marine Strategy Framework Directive, is providing data to the global telecommunication system, so feeding meteorological centers in the world through the contact point at the Institute, at the IPMA, the Portuguese Institute for the Sea and the Atmosphere. It is also providing data to the regional system for the GOOS, so the EBRUS system, also for the alert system for tsunamis, for the global sea level observation system, for the EURSURFMAR. And it is also integrated, these capacities are also integrated a number of European networks and regional observatories. So one of these networks that I wanted to refer that is particularly important for us is the Joint European Research Infrastructure for Coastal Observation, JERICO-ERI infrastructure or network. This infrastructure brings together 17 countries and more than 35 partners. It involves several hundreds of individual observing systems, from ferry boxes, from HF radars, from fixed platforms, from gliders. It covers the global extension of the European coastal ocean, from the Eastern Mediterranean Sea to the Norwegian Sea and Baltic areas. And inside this infrastructure, in the last 10 years, we are articulating with European partners in areas such like interoperability, harmonization, best practices, and the development and the testing of new capacities for the monitoring of the coastal ocean area. It's important to note that the coastal ocean area, in all this, not only in the Portuguese area, but in the global area covered by JERICO, can allow us, this articulation can allow us to address pan-European challenges. This is an area in our area, the Iberic area, where we have our systems. This is an area that not only has several riverine sources that are introducing the coastal environment impacts of the human activity, but it's also an area where we have a very strong activities related to navigation between the Mediterranean and Atlantic, South Atlantic and North Atlantic. And of course, this articulation of systems, like for example, the ones that Instituto Hidrográfico in Portugal and Puerto del Estado in Spain have. For example, the HF radar stations can provide us support, can provide us real-time information that can be used by the sailors, by the ship companies to improve the safety of the navigation, and also to attack problems that result from eventual accidents and eventual problems of contamination. This is important not only in the coastal, in the very coastal area, in the shelf, but we know that in the upper slopes areas that I put here in this blue color, we have important transport processes that are associated with intensified slope currents, and this can promote a very wide transport of contamination along broad European coastal ocean area. One example was in 2002, at the end of 2002, the Prestige accident, where you see here the tracks from the surface floats that follow the main oil spill areas that were launched during the sinking of the ship far offshore. And these slope currents that you see here are transporting the contamination along 1,000 of kilometers at least, distributing the contamination, the oil spills from along the coast of northern Portugal, Spain, even France. So these same transport mechanisms are key for promoting biological connectivity, so to transport biological species. And you see here, for example, one example for one species of the zooplankton in the areas of distribution and the mechanisms of transport that are not only associated with surface circulation, but also with intermediate levels circulation associated with the Mediterranean water, or with intermediate waters like Antarctic intermediate water along the northeast West African coast. And here we can put together partners, for example, in the framework of Jericho, the network. We have the PLOCAM in Canarias, we have IH in Portugal, we have the systems operated by Puertos de Estado in Spain that cover a large part of this domain, and Moroccan partners could also bring other capacities of monitoring, so we can monitor in a large area where this transport of biological organisms are being done. So again, the importance of the real-time monitoring systems that are along the slope area. That can also bring some answers to questions like variability associated with the migration of very important, economically important species like Atlantic bluefin tuna. You see here the tracks of this species from feeding areas to spawning areas along the year, and a large majority of the systems that we together with other partners in Jericho are operating are well placed along these areas of migration, so can give us information about the variability of the environmental factors that could explain the variability that can be associated with these migrations. And finally, the systems that we are operating are also providing at national level support to coastal, governmental agencies, to coastal populations, and also to blue economy actors. I always like this example of the measurements that we have in one of the buoys offshore Nazaré in 2013, where in January 2020, where in the period the 19th January, we have a very severe storm with waves reaching 20 meters high that caused damages in the access to the harbor and so on. And just 9 days after, we had moderate conditions that allowed to have big waves generated due to the Nazaré Canyon topography. And at that moment, we had this amazing surfing from Garrett McNamara that provided one image that was disseminated to around the world. But of course, more recently, we had in October 2018, also the systems measuring the impact of the Leslie hurricane in the Portuguese margin. Finally, these are the backbone, also these systems, this capacity of monitoring are the backbones for our understanding of the long-term variability and climate change. By giving us long-term measurements, for example, of surface temperature during several decades, or for example, of sea level rise, sea level evolution near the coast. Besides this long-term monitoring monitoring capacity that is conducted using these installed capacities, we also conduct a number of observation activities that are multidisciplinary and that are limited in time. Sometimes in the framework of projects, in the framework of services, or in support of a specific question. So we integrate here several systems, ship observations, classical approaches. And I will try to give briefly 2-3 examples of the use of these systems in the Atlantic context, starting by this collaborative action in 2015, the REP 15 exercise, in which together with other partners in Portugal, in the Porto University, in the Aveiro, in the Azores area, with partners from Norway, we conducted a number of observations that aimed to better understand processes that are affecting the seamounts, some seamounts in the area of the Azores, and the impacts on the whales distribution in that area, and where IH conducted measurements in the water column and then used data simulation model to provide the quasi-synoptic view of the conditions in one of the seamounts area, and also to use models to characterize the tides, the impact of tides in this big area that is marked by several seamounts, but also with this narrow channel, the Pico Fayal channel, where important currents developed. Another aspect of the collaborative actions in the Atlantic, the ongoing collaboration with PLOCAN from Canarias that aim to maintain this long glider section from the Nazaré in the western Portuguese coast to the Canary Island, and then allow us at AIH to develop, to build together with PLOCAN, to build know-how on glider operations. And in scientific terms, it will allow these observations to improve our understanding of the forcing of this boundary in the Gulf of Cadiz area, and articulate also with causal measurements. I show you here one recent example. So 2 missions were already accomplished. These are missions funded by this project IFADO. And I insert here one of the sections that was recently object of the study from our colleagues, namely with these interesting medi structures that were caught during the glider section. Another interesting collaborative action was conducted in 2019-2020, was the interarticulation with this Atlantomed mission that used 2 sail-run systems that started observations in the Cape Verde area, and then conducted all the observations all along the northeastern African coast towards Gibraltar and entering the Atlantic and the Mediterranean, and so conducting the observations all along the Mediterranean area. And so here we had the opportunity to have the saildromes doing a period of observations around one of our multiple emetic buoys, and to be there also with the ship to conduct the CTD profiles, and so to have some interesting intercomparations of several variables. In this case, I show, for example, surface temperature and significant wave height measured by the saildrone and by the multiparametric buoy. And finally, I just close my intervention, referring that one collaborative action is being developed now. This is an action that is conducted as part of this joint pilot action that is conducted by the Anchor project. We call this joint action the All Atlantic Marine Research Infrastructure Network. And as part of this action, a number of partners from Portugal, from Cape Verde, from Germany, France, Spain, Brazil, have been together discussing about the possibility to articulate missions at sea in the area of Cape Verde, and so to have more global interaction in several aspects like physical oceanography, marine biology. We namely have this intentions to, that's one of the possibilities, to conduct this survey that I present here, that basically could provide us more large-scale insight or vision about the processes that affect how the general circulation is affecting the area of Cape Verde archipelago, and also how to give us more understanding about the mechanisms of impact of the African coast area to the Cape Verde area. So this is discussion that is ongoing, and it possibly will lead to a collaborative action from September to December this year. And I will stop here and I'll come back to Miguel. So I stopped sharing, and Miguel, please.
Okay. So I think I'm back now, going on the other areas where we develop some activities, but you know, oceanography is very relevant on our activity in the Atlantic. So I'll go a little bit faster on the other disciplines. So starting with hydrography, we do have ongoing a major program that's CMAP 2030, and our aim is to do or complete a high resolution hydrographic survey of the Portuguese areas of jurisdiction. So at least up to the limits of the EZ, but it can go a little bit further to the continental shelf. And we will intend to do it until 2030. This project is absolutely aligned with the biggest world strategies on ocean studies, development, sustainability. I've just put 5 over here: the National Strategy for Marine Science, the Nippon Foundation International Hydrographic Organization Seabed 2030 project. So this project intends to do exactly this, but to the whole world. So our project actually is an added value, and it's a direct contribution to the world coverage of the seafloor in high resolution in terms of bathymetry. It's also aligned with the United Nations second World Ocean Assessment Report and the European Union Starfish 2030 strategy. And it's also aligned with the Atlantic Observatory strategy. That is something where both us and the Air Center will play a role, with some developments occurring in the near future. Now, the relevance of having these bathymetric data, this is really the first level of information to discover, to depict underwater features, and then with other sciences, especially marine geology, to provide the recognition of the nature of the seabed. So this is really the frontier, the basics. And of course, all these strategies that I've been pointing out all mention the digital twin of the oceans. We have now more and more the capability to bring the ocean reality to our digital world. But if we don't have this frontier, you know, everything you put there doesn't really have a good scope. So the high resolution bathymetry is really the starting point. We are not starting from scratch. We've done some work in the past, especially cooperating with MEPC, so our organization for the continental shelf extension, where a lot of work is already done, but we still do have a lot of blanks to fill in. Just to give you an example, a couple of years ago, in one of these surveys, high resolution survey of the bottom was, you know, we were able to depict, let me see if I can get a laser pointer here, to depict 2 structures in the bottom that actually correlate with each other. And so you really do have the mid-Atlantic ridge passing by or through them, separating them. Now they are apart about 11 kilometers. And within, you know, this possible identification of features, a dive was made and an hydro vent was identified. Luso hydro vent was identified, and you know, it was the first one that actually we were able to baptize as a full Portuguese partnership doing it. Just close this one. Now, going to marine geology, we also do have a very long-term program going on, that's SEDMAR, and there's an inherence on this one. We've had a program also, like a 30-year-old program that finished in 2010, 2012, where we would do sampling of the seafloor, with a 1 mile resolution. And with that information, we would produce sediment charts, and with sediment charts, we'd also produce charts to support fishing, where you would have the characterization of the seafloor. We are now expanding that project in two senses. We are going deeper now, so that would cover everything from the coastline of continental Portugal up to 500 meters depth. We are now going deeper. The deepest we intend to go in some areas, probably it's around 3,000 meters, but we are using, of course, different techniques to do this characterization. And we are also expanding to the islands, to Azores and Madeira region. And again, as you've already noticed by João's presentation, we do have contribution to these big programs within the framework of other projects. And over here, you can see we just finished up, or is still going on, but almost finished up a project that's Platmar. And we did the surveys around an Azores island of Santa Maria. And we already collected, of course, all the data necessary to be processed and delivered within that project. But that information also contributes to the SEDMAR big program. And so it's another piece of the puzzle which is already in place. And this is what I mostly like, again, people at sea collecting data. We do have a ship at sea at this time. She's doing a 1 month cruise, multidisciplinary, marine geology, chemistry, hydrography, and oceanography. And so another 15 days and she'll be back in port. And so far, very happy with all the results we've been getting. Regarding chemistry and pollution, I would like especially to talk to you about a project we have going on. And it's more than a project, it's a tendency and linked to a wider objective, both the Institute and international. Last year, we had our tall ship, Sagres, with the plan of doing a circumnavigation voyage, going around the world. So our idea, let's teach those guys how to collect some data that it's really interesting for us and could be an added value for the world knowledge of microplastics pollution. So we did that. We put some material on board. We taught our sailors to do the sampling, to do all the records necessary to have good data. And unfortunately, because of COVID-19, the ship had to come back home earlier than expected. And so we didn't go around the world collecting samples for microplastics analysis, but we did an extra leg on the Atlantic. So we really have a lot of samples now on this. And because we've also do every year now a tour, a cruise with a research ship through African waters. Depends, it could be a mission of a month and a half or 3 months. It really depends on the situation and the planning. So we did have one of our research ships going down there in January for a month and a half. They went down to Cape Verde. So we took the chance to keep collecting samples for the same project. This time, microplastics is also one of the big topics listed on what we could trace and then act upon to have a more sustainable use of the ocean. But it's not just this. This is the big project that it's going on covering the Atlantic. We also have two other big projects, one more close to our shore, related to microplastics detection and analysis, with other, of course, with other sampling parameters. But it's an area where we could keep a very sharp lookout. And of course, then we are still in the process of doing most of these analyses, but I believe by June, July this year, we already have some very nice papers about all this sampling and all these analyses. Regarding data management, collecting all these data, oceanographic chemistry, marine geology, and hydrography, we do have a very large database that needs to be managed, because collecting data is very expensive, and the best you can do for me is reuse it. If one single data set is reusable 10 years later, 5 years later for another purpose, or that is wonderful for us. And so we do have special concerns about data management and data sharing. And for a long time, we do have a spatial data infrastructure for the marine environment in place. And at this time, we are renovating the way people can access this data of course, on the web. So we have going on a project called Hydrographic Plus. And with this, we are renovating some structures, we are renovating interfaces, and we are putting more data available to be reused. You have the website link over here, geomar-hydrographic.pt. At this time, it's a beta version, okay? We probably have this wrapped up by the end of July. So far, it's a beta version, but you can play with it. You can go ahead right away and explore the data that we have there. And what do we have so far that you can look, interact, and some of it even download? Nautical charts and sediment charts, tide data, so that's prediction and observations. Surface currents, João has mentioned our radar network of that allows us to have surface currents in almost real time. Seafloor digital terrain models, sea surface temperatures, and some meteo parameters also. Sea state prediction and observations, and of course the currents are doubled included. What can you do with the system? Of course, you can search for on metadata. You can visualize the data itself. You can download some of the data, but you can also access the services. If you have, some application, if you develop an API, then you can just link and use some of these services directly on your system. So we are doing that and making it also available as a services. The interface, it's the regular but sophisticated geographic information system, web-based. We have the regular 2D presentation of data and of charts and of some of these parameters. We also have 3D visualization of digital terrain models. So just, using links for certain areas where we believe it's really interesting to see how the seafloor develops. And of course, we are also doing some development in providing the user dynamic data, 2D dynamic data. I would say in a few years we'll provide 3D dynamic, so far 2D. And as you can see down here, we do provide a time series of 4 days for surface currents, that the user can interact with the time frame and select a certain period of time to see how currents develop. Now, to wrap up, last topic, IH sensor tech. So I've mentioned on our strategy that we had a theme related to ocean observation techniques and equipments. And IH sensor tech intends to be somehow an incubator for startups, but limited in its scope. Because of our legal status and what we can provide, what we really want is to have the room, space, the knowledge for the development of low-cost ocean observation technologies. That's our main goal with IH sensor tech. Of course, we are also interested in some developments that might be linked to these low-cost observation technologies related to robotics, artificial intelligence, and big data. And we also want, with the IH sensor tech, to provide some training and also certification of these systems. So everything specially focused on operational oceanography. The target for users to take advantage of IH sensor tech are startups, research centers, universities, or research labs. Actually, anybody with a very good idea that sounds good, we will provide the support to that to be arranged and try to make it work. Where would that work? It's in our hydrographic base. So that would be a 15 ride by ferry from downtown Lisbon to Seychelles, and then a 5-minute walk to this space. And what we have there as facilities that could be of use for these startups is a maritime instrumentation center that also has within a calibration laboratory. Of course, we also have there our small vessels and small rubber boats, and we have some office space and some labs, electronic, and the location is great because it's just by the river. If you want to put something in the water, just over there, just drop it. And of course, from there you can get to the ocean. It's still a ride, but it's feasible. So these facilities are things we are willing to share with these startups to make these developments. What is really our differentiated support? What can we provide differently from other incubators or other support systems for some companies or some development activities? Easy access to the sea. We have 4 ships, we have small vessels, we have the monitoring network that João showed you with buoys that we can hang on another sensor. It's so easy access. And we have several missions throughout the year. So we can use ships going to sea to make the best use of testing. We also intend to provide certification. If somebody develops something that we are going to be using on our system for our observation systems, we do certify it. You can say Hydrographic is using it because we will be using it. And depending on what you develop, I'm talking about the startups, the research labs, it might even get a Navy certification. Depends on the scope where that thing could be used. Another differentiated support is the access to a controlled maritime environment on a center we are also developing at this time, a little bit more south. So I would say 40 kilometers south from Lisbon. It's in Troia, where we are developing an experimentation center for operations, especially autonomous remote vehicles, but on this center we'll have a lot of things in the water that can be used in a controlled way for testing some sensors developed at IH Sensatech. And of course, we do have, especially a big technology maritime exercise every year based in Troia, where the organizations that get involved with IH Sensatech will have access to it to do also some live testing in an international environment. So with this, I think we are already on schedule and we still have some time for questions. But Jean-Louis, I finish up, I wrap up here our presentation, and both me and João, we are available to any questions that now may be suitable for the others. Anyway, people can always send us an email and we'll take care of getting their answers back.
Oh, thank you so much, Miguel and João. I have about 25 questions here. We won't have time. We won't have time to receive some of these questions here. It was a fantastic ride. I mean, from sea mountains to startup incubation to operational experimentation, from oceanographic vessels, marine robotics, training, certification, and collaboration. It is really absolutely brilliant what you have been doing the latest 60 years. Congratulations to you all in the Portuguese Hydrographic Institute. But you know, I have a few questions. I tried to compact them. The very first one, I was also very much interested. When you start explaining, how you work at the very first slides, people asking me now, how do you pay for all that? How do you combine public funds, money from projects and from commercial services, as you said? How do you pay for all that and guarantee the long term of all the projects and everything? This is very challenging, because I have to set up all these projects and do all this collaboration. So can you help, the attendees to understand how to pay for all that?
Well, the thing is, we do have admin autonomy, financial and administrative autonomy. It means part of our budget comes from the national budget, but we do have to find a large part of it with the projects and with the royalties of the charts that we sell, because we are an hydrographic service, and also with the services we provide to the community. So it's a combination of 3-4 different sources. I know in January is always a terrible month for us in terms of how much, oh my God, the gap is huge. And then we do have to make an effort to make ends meet. But we do have long-term sustainability with some of these activities. We already know, even if in January we don't have the full plan, we do have an history, and the world is always moving. There's always new things to do. So we do have an idea of how this thing can work out with the most regular budget sources. But of course, there's always uncertainty. And that's what we do here. We have to keep the machine running. Yeah. And the more interesting things are, then it's easier to make the ends meet, I would say. But yeah, it's a challenging exercise. It's the majority of my job is looking at the scientific value of things and issues, and at the same time being aware that finance has to come in also on that.
Oh, thank you so much. This must be very challenging, because you have 300 people that depend on your capacity of bringing on board all these projects in a sustainable way. we have a question from Professor Lebeau from France that asks, I mean, when you put all together on your digital platforms and observation and taking into account sustainability, biodiversity, and also governance of the sea, I mean, would you give some insight about what went on before, during, and after COVID-19 in terms of the environment?
Well, if we are talking about impact on the environment, one thing is the impact on the environment, and the other is the impact on how we work.
Yeah.
I don't think that's interesting now, but you know, we managed to be working, and even with COVID, my teams did a great job. But you know, that's the other side of the question, I would say. I mean, we really did have to adapt. There were things you cannot, you know, with COVID, teleworking does not work on a ship. You do have to go to sea and get the data. If not, then you don't have the product to make the, you know, to make the money necessary to make things happen. So in terms of how we work, it was very challenging. It's still challenging. It has not ended yet. Now, regarding the impact on the environment, I don't know if João has an answer. I don't have really an answer on the areas that I'm particularly focused on.
No, besides some of the impacts that we all saw on the news regarding some of the shutdown of some of the pollutant plants and things like that, that we all saw, that was an impact, a direct impact of COVID, improving the quality of the environment by reducing a number of economic areas and sectors of industry and so on. But to a specific answer that regards the marine environment and our activity that can bring some information that will be relevant to understand if COVID had some impact that we couldn't see now in the marine environment. I don't think our activity covers these specific areas. So we cannot give you an answer that derives from our activity.
Yeah. We have several questions from Omnia. I mean, but I will try to compact them and put it together with others that I have over here related to biodiversity. Basically, you present a lot of physical oceanography. How do you relate your work with the, I mean, efforts on preservation, conservation, I mean, managing biodiversity, marine spatial planning? I mean, what kind of other layers do you put on top of your work, and how do you support these other organizations or efforts to do that?
You want to say, or can
I can start, okay, and then I'll hand over to João. First of all, for biodiversity issues, one thing you do have to take into account is a lot of these physical phenomena. If a physical phenomena is changing and it has like, there's something absolutely different going on, you know for sure there will be consequences on the ecosystem. So we do have on several projects that we are involved with, and what we are measuring it has a direct or indirect application to the people that study biodiversity. And I'll go with the chemistry and pollution activities that we do. We are doing projects relating to aquaculture. We are looking at the chemical and physical parameters in areas just offshore Portugal, and selecting where would be the best places for doing, you know, aquaculture, depending on these physical and chemical parameters. And if then something changed when we are doing some monitoring throughout the years, then we do have the alarms going on saying, oh, something is wrong now, and this will have these kind of consequences. on this, having that said, we don't have within the office expertise necessarily on biology. But what we do is every time we get involved in projects that have biology with chemistry, with the regular physical oceanography, we just grab partners. We can probably there's something was not clear. We don't do this alone. We have more than 100 active protocols with organizations, research, and I'm not counting the projects where we are involved with other organizations. So we don't do this alone. Some of these projects are, led by us, and they are our long-term programs, but we do this always networking with third parties. And so that's where you would get all the necessary expertise then to analyze how these affect biodiversity and ecosystems. João, for you.
Yeah, I wanted to just complement what Miguel said, perhaps in two areas, reinforcing this aspect of the articulation. So to put together the capacities and the know-how that we have in some areas, together with the colleagues and the other institutions that have know-how developed to the marine biology, to the ecosystem research. And I probably could give two examples, the ongoing discussions and project proposals and planned activities that put together our know-how in terms of observing the marine environment in the physical characteristics, but also integrating other components like biological sensors, and in putting this together with the modeling capacity. We are interacting with partners in Portugal, also with partners in the US, in Norway, in project proposals and planned activities for this year, next year, where all these components are bring together. So each institution is bringing part of the know-how, in our case, in terms of physical marine chemistry and marine geology know-how. Other partners more involved in the areas of technology, like, for example, in the development of capacities of autonomous vehicles, for example, and partners that are specialized in areas of marine biology, of ecosystem research, of modeling for the support to fisheries. This is one big aspect, so that our articulation with the others. And I also give as an example our insertion in a bigger picture. I presented before our articulation inside the Jericho area, so this European infrastructure for the observation of the coastal ocean. And inside Jericho area, there are many groups that not only are involved in the marine biology, but are developing technology to increase our ability to monitor biological variables, biogeochemical variables. And so also from this articulation inside this network, we also can gain know-how and increase the capacities of our own infrastructure to provide data to measure quantities that can then be explored by the marine biology researchers, by the community that is specifically addressing the marine biology aspects. So yeah, the articulation with others is, like Miguel said, the key point.
Yeah, that's critical today. I mean, to really collaborate with the other partners that can do things, I mean, to complement a global picture of the ocean. Yeah, the questions is still popping in. So first, Nuno Pereira, he is congratulating you for the excellent presentations. and they are asking if you see surface data, water temperature, pH, turbidity, and others are available to download in your portal.
Yes, so we do have a policy of making available short-term data right away as we get it. Of course, some of it goes firstly through a quality control procedure. Some of these procedures are automatic or semi-automatic, but they are available right away. And we do have regular daily visits to get the data, to download it and everything. But we are adapting our policy to, in some circumstances, to even provide longer time series for people to do their research. We do have a policy that is very keen for who is doing research on the areas that we have data, and we really help people to get the hands on the good things. Of course, we are still automating some of these processes, and but we do have a system in place where people that need access to long-term series just send us an email to our data center and asking what they want. What we really want is people first to search through metadata, get the parameters they want, the time series, and then start asking questions. Can I get my hands on this data? And for, and if it's for commercial purposes, of course, we want some royalties over it. But if it's for research purposes, then within certain limits, we are very open to provide access to it. Okay. We do have robots every day visiting our site and collecting the data and adding to their databases, but we don't care. It's science. It's to have data available for others to search. The CMAP project that I've been talking about in hydrography, we want that data to be all available to everybody, especially with some degree of resolution. Up to a certain resolution, let's make it available for free. But then if we are talking about, the raw data itself, then it's a large amount of data. Making it available does cost a lot of money. And so we do need some royalties there. But for the general purpose use, it's to make it available free on the servers, either our own or the ones we are linked with, especially all the ModNet portals from the European Union.
Oh, that's very good news, and I encourage.
That's an important.
Oh, go on, John. Sorry.
That's an important point that Bessa mentioned it, and that I included but did not specifically refer during the presentation. That some of the data that is being collected by the monitoring infrastructure, there are these real-time data that are collected by multiparametric buoys and that are sent to IH. Some follow an automatic procedure to be disseminated to some centers. For example, for the IBIRUS, the node for the IBIRUS is the Puerto del Estado, so there are automatic procedures to transmit the data to the data that we receive each hour to IBIRUS, to the GTS. There was also been as part of a process of interaction with the node that is IPMA adaptation of the procedures so that this could also feed. So a number of data sets are part of an automatic chain to be disseminated to these centers.
Okay, thank you. So I encourage all the attendees and to send an email to João and ask for the data. Well, I will take another question now from João Lorenzetti, our friend João Lorenzetti from Brazil. I mean, he asked that considering the mission of the Portuguese Hydrographic Institute in operational oceanography, what is being done there related to satellite remote sensing of the oceans in supporting operational oceanography?
Oh, yeah. I'll pass the floor to João at some point, but I want to just to say a couple of things with remote sensing and how we are working with it. It's not just operational oceanography. I'll go for hydrography first, and then I'll give the floor for João for oceanography. We are looking very closely, and we are working on the developments of using remote sensing to extract coastal bathymetry data from images. And this is a challenge, a near future challenge that we have. We are working on it at different levels and with projects, both with projects and both our own, because the applications are huge. You know, hydrography, I show you this map with all this water. It's kind of easy to go there and get the data. It takes time, but it's easy. The most difficult part is exactly the near shore. It's where you are not really able to have a boat going on with a survey equipment because the waves will turn it over. So using remote sensing to be able to extract that data and doing it through the whole country, it's really exciting. So there's already some solutions. The only thing is for cartographic purposes, the quality is still not there. The resolution that we need and the trust that we need on these processes. But for many other applications, it's already valid. And it's really interesting. Now going for oceanography, I'll pass the floor to João.
No, I take exactly these points to start with, because these capacities that Bessa was referring are very, very important, for example, for our use of models in the littoral zone, for the littoral dynamics, and because one of the needs is the ability to have well-covered bathymetry and realistic bathymetry. And we know that in these areas, the bathymetry can change dramatically after winter or after a main storm. And so these capacities that Bessa was referring about, the coastal bathymetry from remote sensing, is also look by us with the main impact to the ability to improve the numerical modeling in these littoral areas. Of course, in the other areas, we have used the remote sensing products as users for example, to assimilate in models or SST data. There have been in the past, a very interesting interaction with Ephemer in exploiting the altimetry data to assimilation of wave conditions in wave models and intercomparison with our own wave measurements with our buoys. And we have now a more seriously involvement in the area of remote sensing, because we are not only users of the data, but we are also we have one or two people that are more directly interacting with remote sensing communities to explore, to evaluate the two-way discussion and two-way interactions that can be established. So this is an area where we, coming from users, we are becoming also partners of development, if I can say that.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for the answer. And well, I will kind of combine a lot of questions in a single final question. I mean, I'm insisting on this question because you have, between Zoom and YouTube, we have almost 100 people still watching you. So this is fantastic news. We are far beyond the hour, but you know, Networking Fridays, as I said before, are very relaxed. So I mean, the final question is the following. I mean, building on a question by Omnia Ibrahim and how they can join your technology exercise, and also Aristomenes Amadeu from São Tomé e Príncipe, how they can get data, bathymetry data for São Tomé and Príncipe. Basically, the question is, how can people connect with you, how they can collaborate, how they can develop joint actions, joint projects, and how, and as we are somehow together on this marionette, João, and how they can join as a stakeholder this network that's been created now with infrastructures. So how can people work with you?
So, okay, I'll start and then I'll pass the floor to João also. We do play in similar fields, but different at some point. First of all, how can they join the technology exercise? The technology exercise is easy for a Portuguese company to join in, because now this is an exercise we've been doing for Navy for at least 10 years, and it's now a NATO exercise. So people from a NATO country, so as Portugal, with some interesting technology, especially remote unmanned vehicles, because it's focused mostly on unmanned vehicles. Then they can just contact the Navy. It could be through us. There's not a problem with that. And they can then, depending on the scope, they can be asked, or they can kind of not apply, but be invited to. For this, and we do this exercise normally in September. For this September exercise, everything is closed, everything is planned, all partners are in place, so there's no more, you know, there is no room for anybody else. And it's an exercise that at sea, it's at least 2 weeks at sea and 2 weeks preparing. So it's really a major exercise and very interesting. Regarding bathymetry data for São Tomé, yeah, I remember there was already a question on an email like this. Just send in an email. Yeah. Send an email, what of course I'll do is connect it to our data center, which is in charge of looking at people's need of data and then get the feedback. When I say send us an email, if you go to our website, that's just hidrográfico.pt, you'll have contacts there. So it's probably the easiest way, but you can always go and look at the front page of these slides. You have my email and João's email. And so for us, it's a regular request. It's not a problem. And regarding São Tomé, we really did a survey in 2016 on Bahia and Chaves. I'm not sure if that's what you are looking for, but if it is, we do have data, and of course we used it to update the chart of São Tomé and Príncipe that covered that area. How can people collaborate with us? You've seen the scope. It's really interesting for us to cooperate within the scope of research and development projects. Of course, there must be a sponsor somewhere. It really depends, but actually not always you need a sponsor. I mean, I'm going to give you 2 examples of how can we work together, or we can provide some sort of support to your activities. 2 cases. One that I find it very emblematic, CMAR. CMAR, we have been cooperating at least for more than 10 years. Every time we send the ship to the Azores, they have a special need to look at birds and, you know, stasias, so whales and whatever. If we have a room on board, it's fine. It's, you know, just managing the contacts to make it happen. Where do people get in? Where they do get out? How long they will stay on board? And they'll do their work, and we'll do our work, and they can benefit from having a research ship available to do their research. Another example, this ship that I've told you, we're doing this cruise that will last 1 month. We are cooperating with a university who asked us to have 2 scientists on board just to have the experience of collecting data, putting hands on, and of course people go to the ship, they go to work. It's a cruise, but it's not a cruise ship. So it means people go and do their work on board. If they are just trying to get a feeling or the experience, they will be involved in the teams. They will be replacing people. So and this is very simple, how we cooperate on the most basic things. And then of course it's the projects, it's the common ground of research. We always look at all calls and proposals that come to us. Of course we do have to make choices, because although, you know, we have 300, resources are not limited, and people are always stretched. You know, we are always kind of stretched, but if there's a good agenda, if there's something, then of course we'll probably have some room for cooperation. And there's memorandums of understandings and protocols we can always establish. Now, to João.
Specifically for the actions that are under the umbrella of the Marinette initiative, I will say that the 2 best channels of contact are here. One is Jé and the other is me, because we are the 2 involved in this initiative. So this initiative that I explained, that was bringing together actions of observation, profiting from already planned missions by different ships, and trying to see if an articulative effort could be combined from these missions. This is part of a larger idea of initiative, and me and José, we are the 2 elements that are part. I will just briefly explain the other probably more bigger framework in which these specific actions are inserted. That's precisely our understanding at the beginning, that sometimes partners that are observing the Atlantic area are not aware of one of each other's, and sometimes we have systems that are passing in an area that could articulate with others, but because we don't know each other and what we are doing, we miss these opportunities. We add very specifically this evidence of this with this mission that I show you, the Atlant2Med mission with the sail drones, because we were involved, because we had institutions, partners that knew about our capacities, and that bring that information to the discussion of the planning of the. But this was mainly because we knew each other, and so we risked to miss that opportunity because we didn't know. We did not know about the sail drones passing in the area of Portuguese south coast, and sail drone at the beginning did not know that we had a multiparametric buoy there that could be used to comparison exercise. So one of the areas that we want to develop in the Marinette initiative is precisely this web portal that could be adapted to understand what kind of initiatives in terms of observation are going on or are planned at the short, medium term, so that we can approach each other and see the opportunities to put together the things. So this ship's articulation is one, let's say, case study that we are developing of this more general view. And so if people want to participate or want to be informed about this, I think my contact and Jose contacts are the best first options to know about it and then develop the ideas.
Well, thank you so much. You know, one of the reasons that I never try to moderate this kind of sessions because I'm a terrible moderator. I would stay here talking with you for another hour, but you know, we are already much past the ending time. I mean, I thank you, the audience, to staying with us until now. I mean, instead of almost 100, I mean, putting all them together, is still listening to the fantastic achievements of the Portuguese Hydrographic Institute. I thank you so much, Miguel, João. I mean, fantastic presentations, and I'm sure people will flock, sending you emails and looking for your data. And also I'd like to say thank you for Catarina that was helping me today and been helping me on the networking Fridays. And well, I see you all next week with the Networking Friday Geological Planet. Audrey Hossan and also Emily Smay will be there to show what they've been doing in terms of connecting ocean observation for society and impact. So again, thank you, João. Thank you, Miguel.
Thank you, Jose, for having us.
Okay.
Thank you for having us.
Bye. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.